All right. Hi, everybody. And depending on where you are joining us from in the world, good morning or good afternoon or good evening. I am Yael Fitzpatrick, and I'm really excited to be moderating this opening session on equity and inclusion in publishing. So we're going to start with Brittany Griffiths from DePaul University, presenting on the rhetoric of hybrid publishing, negotiating legitimacy and stigma in the modern publishing landscape. Then the second presentation will be from Daniela Thorin and Jennifer Regala from Walters Kluwer, with their presentation, Equity at the Editorial Table, Rethinking Board Policies for Inclusive Ethical Publishing. And then we're going to round out the session with two remote presenters, Jolie Hale and Diane Wade, who are down at the University of South Carolina Press. And they're going to be presenting on the primary beneficiary, equity in publishing internships.
Wonderful. Thank you, John, and thank you, Yael, for the introduction, and to George Washington University for having this conference. My name is Brittany Griffiths. I am a senior at DePaul University, and this research was born out of a grant that I received this summer undergraduate research grant. And I work in hybrid publishing. That is my full-time job. I'm the senior manager of operations at Brown Books Publishing Group in Dallas, Texas. And this is a question that's been on my mind for many years now. It's just understanding what hybrid publishing is in terms of the broader publishing landscape, and also understanding what others think about it and how we talk about it. So let's begin with a simple premise. The publishing industry is notoriously opaque. I think we can all probably attest to that. And what I mean by that is that authors typically don't have an inside look at how production works, how distribution works, and predominantly how sales works. So part of what I did with my research is trying to investigate, how people use language to describe hybrid publishing. So I can start with what hybrid publishing is not, and that is it's not traditional publishing and it's not self-publishing. It falls somewhere in between. It's not a publisher of both traditional and self-published titles, which is sometimes what people misconstrue hybrid as. It's not vanity publishing, which is something that comes up in online forums very frequently. I'll get into that in a little bit. And it's not a publishing services model because we offer distribution and we manage sales. It's also not a dual format between print and digital. Sometimes people think when we say hybrid publishing, we mean it appears in a digital format or it appears in a print format. And that is not what we're talking about with hybrid publishing. And it is not a shortcut to being published. It ties back into the vanity publishing moniker, but we do not cut corners when we're trying to get a book to market. And it is not free. So that is kind of the crux of this whole conversation. So what is a hybrid publisher? It operates somewhere in the middle ground between traditional publishing and self-publishing. It incorporates elements of both. So the author is involved in the production process. They have stake, not only financially, but creatively in the project. And unlike self-publishing services companies, reputable hybrid publishers do vet their submissions. We maintain editorial integrity and we abide by production standards. So the goal is to essentially be seamless and to be able to not tell the difference between a traditionally published book and a hybrid published book. And the IBPA has done some amazing work in really trying to lay out some points of criteria to identify what a hybrid publisher is. So I've listed this here. This is on the IBPA's website, and it's sort of the foundation for which I've used to describe what hybrid publishing is. As you can see here, it's some of the elements that I've mentioned before. All hybrid publishers that are functioning accept payment from authors. It's an author subsidized model. So the authors have capital stake in bringing the book to market. Now, typically in a traditional model, obviously we know that traditional publishers are funding the project. They are investing in the project, whether that's through an agent or if they're picking up the author on their own, but they're investing in production to bring the book to market. So hybrid publishing has emerged as a disruptive force in today's literary landscape. It challenges traditional notions of legitimacy, authorship, and also artistic authority. So how do we study the way people talk about ideas? That's what Rhetoric is, right? We're looking at the language used and the conversations people are having to talk about ideas and concepts. So my project over the summer was sort of divided into 3 parts. I conducted a literature review and looked at some not only industry-related texts, but also some online forums through digital ethnography. And then I also conducted 39 industry interviews with a variety of different publishing professionals. So when we take a look at what the book is, the book has been around for a very long time as an object. The publishing industry has developed over time, and it is now what we have today. I think people often harken back to the publishing industry as it was in the 50s and 60s, a sort of golden age of publishing, where publishers were able to invest large amounts of capital in acquiring titles and bringing those to market. The industry has changed a lot in the last 50 to 60 years, and a lot of that has been propped up by digital platforms. Like KDP, for example, has provided authors a completely different avenue for bringing their books to readers. So I think a lot of this negative rhetoric around hybrid publishing has sort of emerged from this idea, the romanticism of the publishing industry, of getting picked up by a traditional publisher and having your book legitimized or valued in that way. So one of the things that I wanted to do was really understand like how we make meaning when we talk about hybrid publishing or traditional publishing or even self-publishing. I think the book is perceived as sort of this rare and culturally cherished object, and it's sort of informed the mystique of traditional publishing and authors' desires to have their work chosen. Hybrid publishing shifts the capital risk away from the publisher, the traditional publisher, and it moves it back to the author. And it requires them to invest in the production and the distribution, and it also gives them a lot more marketing control over their work. And they're able to retain a high creative and financial control. But because authors in hybrid contracts, they're required to front the capital to produce and promote the book, there's a lot of questions that have arisen around the ethics of paying for your book to be published, and also the return on investment. So here's some of the reasons that I've spoken with people about why they go hybrid. Obviously, I work at a hybrid publisher, and so I speak with authors every day. And there's a myriad of different reasons why someone might want to go hybrid. It's not just a matter of not getting their book picked up by an agent, which does happen. But a lot of people are really concerned with creative control over their work. This is their baby. This is something they've spent years writing, and they really want to have input, whether it's on cover design, sometimes even typography and the layout of the book. But they're also really concerned about how it's presented to the market and who the readers are that they're trying to reach. They also want higher royalties. I think typically authors don't have a lot of insight into how sales works and how the distribution network is constructed. And sometimes even people in the publishing industry don't know. I know it's been a huge learning curve for me myself, stepping into the distribution side of things and trying to understand how our books reach market. And so I've provided a quote here, which kind of sums up what I was saying about some of the chief advantages of the hybrid model for those who choose it is control, timing, rights, the outcome of the product itself. But the chief barrier is the barrier to entry with income, because it does take a lot of money to bring a book to market. So I think when I started this research, I was under the impression that traditional publishers or industry professionals were really the ones sort of holding the hybrid model back. And I think the most surprising thing to me in this is that it's not the case. Most of the folks that I've talked with who work in publishing, whether traditional, hybrid, or are consultants who help authors, they're already here. They're ready for hybrid publishing. It's been talked about for probably about the last decade. The IBPA has done great work. We have a lot of people in the industry really pushing to set ethical standards for hybrid publishers. I think the digital ethnography component of this really opened my eyes, because it seems to me that authors are really the ones kind of holding this model back. So I took a look at digital platforms like Reddit and Instagram. I spent a lot of time on various subreddits, whether it's our writers or self-publishing. And I found something really interesting, and that's anytime hybrid publishing would come up on the digital platforms, people would immediately jump on and just start tearing it apart. I looked at about 39 Reddit posts over the last 4 years. There was even one going all the way back 15 years ago. And I also looked at hybrid publishers' websites. And these are some of the words that hybrid publishers use to describe hybrid publishing. So you can see here, it's really built around relationships or next generation, forward thinking, shared mentorship, author-centric. So this is how hybrid publishers view themselves versus how authors view hybrid publishers. So this is one of my favorites that I found on the R Writers subreddit. And, just an honest question, not trying to create conflict. So this person already knew sort of how this forum worked and what to expect. But they were asking an honest question about why people have this viewpoint of hybrid publishing as somehow unethical or taking advantage or predatory. And so I've highlighted some of the responses here from this one particular post. And again, there's 39 more like it. But you can see here some of the words that are used. So scam is a frequent word that comes up. Dishonest. You can see the fluid use of air quotes here for publishers and hybrid publishing. Vanity press, prey, hybrid publishers again, scam. And one of the things I thought was really interesting, there was an astute comment talking about like self-publishing isn't the height of vanity, right? And I would say that everyone wants to get their book published, right? Anyone who writes a book wants to get it published. I don't know if that necessarily means that you're vain in any way. And so the fact that the word vanity comes up in publishing at all is sort of like a misnomer, right? Like, of course, if you write a book and you want to get out to market, why would that be vain in any way? You're a writer, that's what you do. And again, some additional comments here about vanity presses. So this is something that I really tried to get to the bottom of, is why people associate hybrid publishing with vanity publishing. And it seems to me that it comes down to the money, right? Someone paying to publish is somehow doing something wrong or unethical because they want their book to be read. And I uncovered this term I had not heard before. It's called Yogg's Law. And it's been kind of promulgated across the internet for many years now. But essentially what it comes down to is that the money should always flow from the publisher to the author. And it seems to be kind of the hang up for a lot of authors, is that anytime that they have an opportunity to get published and they have to pay, they immediately think that it is a scam. So this is a list of headers from different Reddit posts that I've come across here. So you can see it is a contested topic in this space. And so the third part of my research really came down to industry interviews. And I spoke with about 39 different industry professionals, people who were publishers, hybrid publishers, traditional publishers, authors who had both been traditionally published and also published by hybrid publishers. And then I also spoke with editors and people who worked in production. I think the glaring hole in my research is that I could not get any agents on the phone. And I think that agents are one of the last strongholds for the traditional publishing industry. They still play a sort of gatekeeping role because a lot of authors cannot get published traditionally without an agent. So an agent has to sort of check off on your work and say, yes, I support this, I'm willing to back it, I'm willing to try and get you published. So I took an oral history approach here. I conducted hour-long interviews with 39 different industry professionals. I reached out through my own network. I reached out through platforms like Instagram, the XOXO Publishing forum, and I was able to get a broad group of individuals who were all so wonderful and supportive and very open about talking about this topic. So I have the breakdown of the sort of places in the industry that people worked. As you can see here, 5% of people I talked to are traditionally published, 5% self-published authors, and then predominantly 18% were hybrid published authors. So what does all of this mean, especially in light of a conference on publishing ethics? So I think we're past the point now where hybrid publishing is going to go away. I think it's here to stay. We have new hybrid publishers popping up every year, and we have a lot who have been around for many years and who are doing really great work and doing work educating authors. And I think that is really the forefront of what hybrid publishing does that traditional publishing does not, and what kind of pushes us past this question of ethics is that many hybrid publishers really want authors to understand how the publishing industry works. Typically, that means you're forming a relationship with the author and you're really kind of hand-holding them through the process. I've appreciated that element of hybrid publishing more than anything else. I come from a hybrid library publishing background, and I've done some work in traditional, but the relationships that I've built with authors through hybrid publishing, I think has been essential to me in my growth in the publishing industry and understanding how and why people publish books or want their books published. One of the key takeaways is obviously that the authors themselves, I think, are still not fully on board with the hybrid model. There's a lot of online skepticism around this, and it's driven by that idea of Young's Law, where the money should always flow from publisher to author. And then lastly, ethical hybrids are transparent. They really are. They're working to try and explain to authors how the process works, what they need to do. And predominantly, I think a lot of the really ethical hybrid publishers are explaining to authors that it is very challenging to sell books. I think that is one of the hardest things to do. You can make a great book all day, but it's very difficult to sell books. And so authors coming into the publishing industry really need to understand that, and they need to be fully behind their book. If they don't believe in their book, who else will, you know? And so I think that that's been one of the biggest takeaways for me working in hybrid publishing is seeing authors sort of track that logic and then take that out to market, whether it's having really robust tour schedules or marketing campaigns to try and get their books noticed, because it is a competitive industry. I'm not sure what the last count was, but I think we had around 2 million books published last year. It's a lot of books. So trying to compete with not only other books in the industry, but other media is challenging. And I think that that expectation of ROI is really what sort of has led to some of the negative rhetoric around hybrid publishing. I've provided some references here. I have an early report from my research that is online. You can find that on my LinkedIn. But I'm hoping to develop this a little bit further out and pull from the interviews that I've taken to write a long form essay that really breaks down some more statistics around this topic. And so I would love to follow up with you guys later and share that once it's done.